Hey everybody, this is Nick. I'm here with Brandon, and today we have a very special guest, which Brandon and I are unapologetically going to nerd out about. We have Mike Michalowicz in the house, author of The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, The Pumpkin Plan, Surge, Profit First, and most recently we talked about it on this podcast, the book Clockwork. He is also a podcast host himself from the Profit First podcast and Growing My Accounting Practice. Mike, thank you so much for taking the time out and helping us.
Nick, Brandon, both you gentlemen, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this.
Yeah. So I'm gonna kick it off, and then I'm gonna let you two drive this bus, and I'll come back in at the end. But in the last episode, we talked about finding your ideal clients and how that was really going to nurture your company, but you also had to protect your business at the same time. So Brandon, opening up Craven Local Food Market and revamping Vegetable. This is a great opportunity with all of Mike's books freshly on the mind to get a unique take from the author. So take it away, boys.
Yeah, thanks again, Mike, for joining us and being on the podcast. It's a pretty cool opportunity for me to interview the author of the books I'm actually in the middle of reading. So hopefully I can get maybe some feedback on the things that I've been trying out. And like Nick said, we had been talking about finding your ideal client, and the cafe that I took over, it's been a truck stop the last 30 years, and I'm not interested in running a truck stop. We basically call it a farm cafe or a farm kitchen because we're bringing ingredients that, we're growing ourselves or growing locally or are part of a local farm network. So we're really doing a complete 180 of what this business used to be. And I'm in rural North Carolina, like middle of nowhere, North Carolina. So it's kind of been an interesting dynamic of having people walk in expecting the hamburgers, the French fries, and the sweet tea. Yeah. And now they're seeing energy bites, kombucha, and homemade soda, and just it's a little different. So obviously I've had to compromise on some things, when I first opened up, there was no sweet tea, and no matter what my ideals are, not having that's a problem. So it's been a real interesting thing where I know that some of the people that walk in are going to be walking out right away. And at the same time, I don't want to be so stern in my thinking where it's all got to be about me and my idealism, right? So I feel like I've had these immutable laws. It's kind of the verbiage that you use in your book, where it's like my guiding light. So I can make small compromises, but I have a guiding light.
Yeah, it's funny. So I have that same thing. So I have certain rules, these immutable laws, which are just, they're values that are so strong that if they're compromised, you just kick yourself for allowing yourself to do it. Right. I have one I call no dicks allowed. I will not do business with dicks. I used to. And also I won't be one. That's a rule I've set for myself. And at times, particularly in the past, as my businesses went through different iterations, I became that guy and regret it. And I compromised myself to do business with people who their money was attractive, but the relationship was not an attractive one, but I still pursued it. And since bringing these immutable laws to a conscious level, I've been much more capable of being steadfast with it, and it served me so well. And yes, you got to decline some business, but then it opens the door for new business. I'm actually curious about your cafe. Have you attracted now the customers that are thrilled that you didn't have sweet tea, or thrilled that you have these fresh ingredients and stuff like that?
Yeah. And so I think patience is what's ultimately going to serve me well here. I mean, the first 6 weeks, it was pretty tough because it was like a 50-50 deal. Half the people walking in were just not happy with what they saw. Yeah. But the other half of people who are kind of adventurous and want to explore a new place, they would come in and be happy. And so, the person who wants to pay $2.50 for a biscuit and it's just never going to be happy anyway, I would watch them turn away, and that would be fine. And so as the weeks progress, more and more of the people that I would want to see are coming in, and they're coming back again and again, and they're leaving reviews on Facebook and Yelp and really supporting what we're doing. And so,
that's great.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, reading your books, it kind of gave me the confidence that I didn't have to just crumble all my ideas in the first couple of weeks when honestly we're just bleeding money.
Yeah, I can imagine. I have a saying that people speak the truth through not their words, but through their wallets. Mm-hmm. And, often people say, how was your experience with our cafe, our business? And people go, oh, it was fine. And then they never come back again. It's
Yeah.
the action of not coming back again that indicates their true sensation. The fact you said that you have customers coming back repeatedly now, that's an indication that they truly value you. That
Right.
action needs to be measured as a major win. So kudos for you. Question, of course, is how do you clone those customers? That's something in the pumpkin plan. How do you clone them to
Yeah.
keep expanding that market? But it sounds
Yeah.
like you got something special.
Well, another thing that you brought up in your book, I think this was in Clockwork, it's know who you want to serve. And
Yeah.
I'm very clear about who I want to serve. I mean, I want to serve someone like myself. Growing up, I worked in finance, had a nice 9 to 5 job, and on Sundays I would make myself all the meals for the week ahead of time, so I
Mm,
didn't have to worry about it. And that's really what I'm doing here. I just want a place where people can come, pick up meals, grab 5 or 6, take them to go, hot or cold, and make them healthy, make them accessible, and all of those things convenient for everybody. And so I knew what at the end of the day I wanted to offer convenience and health to people.
there's a business in the Philadelphia area and expanding in the Northeast called Bryn and Danes. I had the privilege of meeting Bryn Davis is his name, 15 years ago when he was just getting started. And it's a very similar vision. He's like, I want to bring healthy food to the community. And he also realized that people enjoy fast food because of its convenience. So I want to bring healthy, fresh, fast food was his vision for Bryn and Danes.
Hmm.
And to get started, he actually started with just popcorn because he couldn't afford to build this business, but to see how people were, and popcorn and smoothies, and see how people were responding. And what he did was he used that to determine where was the best location to find the customer flow of people that wanted some healthy choices. Once he did that, he made his next all-in bet, which was opening this fast food restaurant, but that was healthy, fresh
Yeah,
fast food.
yeah,
And it took him years, but people were so it was so atypical to find a fast food restaurant that was serving like similar ingredients to what you were sharing.
yeah,
They got traction, and now I think he's got 7 or 8 locations, and it's getting massive momentum. Sometimes it's a bold move, but sometimes when you introduce something new, like you said, you have to have patience, stick with the community, overserve the people who love you because they become your biggest champions, your biggest marketing engine,
yeah.
and they may be able to carry it to the next level.
I have a little stash of cookies for people that come in and either spend a lot of money, or I know that they've been sharing something on Facebook, or they've just been repeat customers. So it's definitely doing what you've been saying about nurturing your top clients.
Yeah,
They get that free cookie every time.
that's genius. By the way, that's a great marketing move.
It doesn't cost. I mean, it costs what, 10 cents? It's not no big deal. And I think when people walk into a place, they want to feel cared about, like they're spending money with you, and so
Yeah.
it doesn't take much to go that extra mile. Like
Well,
you like.
the interesting point you're making is that not all customers are the same, and that's the misperception I think many entrepreneurs struggle with is believing that every customer, every client is the same, treat them all extraordinarily well. And the reality is, treat your best customers best. Give them something extra because that builds an affinity towards you. I mean, cookies. I realize that maybe it's 10 or 15 cents, but the fact that they have access to something that the general community that shops at your store doesn't makes them feel special. It emboldens them. It brings about more loyalty because they're getting something unique. So it really is a good strategy. And it's interesting to treat your best customers best. It doesn't need clearly to be that expensive.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, again, like I'm in the middle of nowhere, North Carolina, so like the expectations in the bar has been set pretty low, which is honestly a benefit to me because it
Yeah.
allows me to figure everything out. And look, I've been honest with people when they walk in. I said, I didn't spend a whole lot of money opening this thing up. It's humble beginnings. We're trying to
Yeah.
be a locally, grow as much as we can, make as many meals as we can, but then develop this grocery aspect of it, which is local. And look, I don't have the money to afford a bunch of inventory, so the grocery shelves are just going to grow as the business grows, and just telling people that, and I think they appreciate it. And there's definitely people that like root for me as a small business owner. And I think just being honest with people in that regard, putting my face out there, meeting them, remembering their name, all that stuff seems to add up.
What's funny is traditional business marketing says never show your weaknesses. Don't say you're a startup. Stock those shelves, even if you got to fake it and you got to do all the inventory and consignment or something crazy just to get a stock, because we need to look the part, act as if. Here's the irony: Businesses that put on a front are being disingenuous to their customers. The customers who figure it out leave. And no one really roots for the guy who's already successful. It's the underdog that we want to support and serve. So I think by your candor, and I think it's a great lesson for all entrepreneurs listening, being the underdog is a good thing. Now, no one wants a martyr either. They don't want you hearing, oh, I always struggle. I've never done well. I don't think I'll ever make it. That's just as unappealing as the successful person that just brags all the time.
Yeah.
So we have to share that, listen, this is humble beginnings, but we have a big vision. We want you part of our family. We want you to join us, and we are going to do big things together. Would you join us as we start up? That's a much more compelling story than either of those other extremes.
And in farming, there's no better place because the realities of farming are extremely tough. I mean, you have perfect tomatoes growing all season long, and the week before you're ready to do a big harvest, the temperature can swing wildly and all of your tomatoes crack. You know, being honest about the situation in farming and why your stuff isn't perfect all the time, it sort of enrolls people into rooting for you. And so, you know, giving people both sides of the equation, it's just adds authenticity, which, like, why would you want to do it any other way?
And there's an opportunity also in being different. Like, I never heard about cracking tomatoes. I'm a gardener, so I've seen cracked tomatoes. I didn't realize it was in temperature swings. You know, what's great is you can leverage those weaknesses as your strength. Like, why not have a cracked tomato festival or make your cracked tomato soup or something and say that, you know, the weather played in our favor and it gave us cracked tomatoes, which, you know, you have to put a story behind it. You can't lie, but you can always spin a weakness into another opportunity. And I think that's the opportunity that small businesses have. When we're small, we can put spins onto it. These mega farms and stuff, they're all about quantity. They're stuck in producing their one thing over and over again. It's all about a volume game. Small farmers, small businesses, we can be much more dynamic and put spins on things and add more flavor to our story by leveraging those weaknesses.
Yeah, like we can introduce scarcity. You know, we only have so many of these tomatoes. We
The
can
cracked tomato collection, like they're rare.
Yeah, and people, I mean, people don't really know, or I mean, some people will see a cracked tomato and just pass on it for the non-cracked tomato. But yeah, building something around it, making it a fun and unique thing. I think that's a pretty cool way to look at it, and that's why I appreciate you coming on from outside of industry and giving us this fresh perspective because, you know, I read your books and I know how to plug that into my businesses. We don't always need books around farming to teach us everything we need to know about a farm business.
So here's the greatest irony of all. I think it's often outside our industry where we learn the most. You know, I'm an author. I know the book industry, and I've gone to enough book conferences to put a bullet in my head. I went to a cleaning conference, carpet cleaning, and I learned there this little trick. They said, when you put an 800 number on your product, that it says pre-recorded message waiting for you, the sales, you can increase sales by 5 to 10% because people call the message and it's a sales message. So I was like, why not put that on a book? Like, that's such a great idea. So on one of my books, I put an 800 number, did it for years. And sure enough, sales started to increase. People go to Barnes & Nobles, look at the book, see the 800 number, and now I had a message trying to convince them. So I encourage everyone, get outside your industry to get the greatest insights.
Yeah. And so one of our overarching theories in the podcast as a business is, you know, we see this gap between the modern consumer and the farmer, where people just aren't going to farmers markets. They're not picking up a little bit of this, a little bit of that to make their dinners from scratch. And so we just feel like there's an opportunity for farmers to connect with them in some different way. And a lot of that's through value added products. So taking your tomatoes and turning them into salsa is just one way that you can make it a little easier for the person. And I'm taking that one step further where, you know, we'll grow it, we'll prepare it into meals, and we'll deliver it to your house. So we're taking as many, you know, boundaries and ways like away from them. And now it's really just up to you. Is what we're offering as delicious as anything else you can get? Is it as fresh as anything else you can get? And if we can check those boxes, I mean, I feel like we have to succeed if we're doing the right things. And, you know, I can be impatient, but, you know, we're getting 1 or 2 more subscribers every single week. And as long as we keep doing that, you know, I think we're going to be just fine.
You just hit a buzzword for me, subscribers. There's huge opportunity, I believe, in subscribership right now. In the traditional models where you'd subscribe, become a member maybe of a pool community, or you become a subscriber of some magazine. But now that model has expanded to all things, including food delivery. Now there's a couple of these now juggernauts like Blue Apron and stuff like that, but they can't deliver fresh. They're making hundreds of thousands of the same meal over and over. They're going to crank it with carbohydrates, right? Like as farmers, you could own the subscription for your community. There's no question about it. And subscription also means predictability. And that really gets my juices flowing when I hear, oh, every Monday I'm going to get in, $20 or $50 or $100 from customers. And I got 200 customers. I have predictable revenue. Now I can start really growing my business with predictability, and that's exciting.
And all of our ingredients that we have to buy, either at the grocery store from other farms, it's all prepaid because they get charged first thing Saturday morning, and that's when we start harvesting. We go to the farmers market.
It's beautiful.
And people want a subscription because what people care about more than anything else, I believe, is convenience. I mean, look at Walmart. I mean, there's a reason that exists, and it's not because of lobbying or anything like that. They found a way to provide value by the cheapest prices and having as much in the store as they can possibly fit. They just gave convenience to people. And so I think we have to sort of get off our idealism a little bit and say, as a community of farmers, we can't expect everyone to just buy the tomatoes and the onions and turn it into salsa themselves. I think people are looking for more convenience now. People they don't cook like they used to.
No, I would agree with that. I think there's three consumer pools. There's the price shopper, there's the convenience shopper, and there's the quality shopper. I believe the mass is convenience. And by the way, any product will have all of it. It'll have a price component. You may not be the cheapest, you may be cheaper, or maybe more expensive. It'll have a degree of quality. You can't serve up crap. I mean, it has to have something value to it, but they'll put the majority of value in something. Convenience is the biggest market, but that also points to the fact that there is opportunity in quality. You can have such a high quality meal, so fresh, so amazing that people pay a massive premium for that. It's a small market, but they exist. There's the others that they don't care about convenience. They don't care about anything. They want cheap. Those are the Costco shoppers. I'll drive 75 miles to get that one chicken because it is $10 or $2 cheaper than anywhere else. Mm-hmm. So that's a market too. For small business, competing on price is very hard because the only way to make money on price is volume. There's such a thin margin. So I would argue as a small farm, any kind of business, don't focus on price competition. Select convenience or quality. Convenience is also hard to compete on because the big players will step into that space. They have more money. They can get closer. Quality often is the easiest way to differentiate. You can deliver such a high quality that you blow everyone out of the market. Just realize the consumer base is smaller. So I agree, convenience is the bigger opportunity. Quality often is a lower amount of competition. So pick one and then dominate in one, but you're going to have competition, of course, in all three. It's usually one of those two you got to pick.
Yeah. Mike, is it safe to say that, as a small business, we need to make sure we're covering our market? We don't have to go over there and take over the world, so to speak, but we could add on a layer to our company, like the delivery, like pre-prepped food, and just by adding those small incremental layers kind of help notch us up and separate us out from everybody else.
Yeah, totally. So I heard this saying once, now I've absorbed it as my own. The right size business can find you. Like whoever said a bigger business is a better business, that guy's a jerk. Like it's not true. The right size business for you is the best business for you. So it doesn't matter what the top line is. What I care about is how much money are you taking home? How comfortable are you in your lifestyle? And are you having an impact that gives you joy? I mean, are you doing something in your business that you really feel fulfilled? That's the numbers that matter. So it's comfort and joy. And so if it's a smaller farm, great. If it's giving you the lifestyle you want, great. Then to go, and if you want to go expand and push it to a higher degree in sales or in other ways, absolutely expand into your customer base. I'm a fan of always being different. I always look at what is the established approach and what can I introduce that's different. Different does not promise you new business by any stretch of imagination, but different always promises you attention. People notice different. Brandon, when you changed your cafe, like that's different, man. People noticed, and it does not guarantee business. Obviously, people left, but some people said, "Wow, finally, I've never experienced something like this in rural North Carolina. I've got my place." And so we can do this anywhere in the world with any type of business. Introduce new and different things, and you'll be able to expand based upon that.
Yeah, and I feel like if we can make this work in the middle of nowhere, North Carolina, we can make this work anywhere. And part of this, even exposing everyone to what I'm doing, is because, I want to be special and unique, but I don't want to be so special and unique that this can't be replicated everywhere. So the way to make an impact in your local food system nationally is to just lead by example and saying, hey, look, I honestly think a small farmer can easily manage a shared kitchen. I mean, it's not, I didn't know what I was doing. I have no professional experience in the culinary arts or anything. We all figure this out as we go. I mean,
Yeah.
you were going through your own crisis, it seems, as you were writing these books, because you went deep and had to learn them for yourself. And I think that's where we all figure things out. And you get people to realize, like, it just takes a little more of a possibility type thinking to allow yourself to do something like that.
Yeah, the solutions we find for ourselves are often the solutions other people are starving for. And often it is crisis, I think, that presents it. Sometimes it's thrust upon ourselves. Maybe you open that shared kitchen and you're like, holy cannoli, like I'm in trouble here. I don't even know how to like turn on the burners here. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Right. And so there's that learning curve we thrust upon ourselves. Other times it's a little more insidious, and it kind of gets thrust upon us, or maybe we're blind to the fact we thrust upon ourselves. Myself, uh, I've been an entrepreneur my entirety of my life. I've been in the service industry, in technical services. I've been in computer crime investigation. I'm now an author. I've owned a manufacturer in middle of nowhere, Missouri. We made leather products. And what I discovered throughout the process is I thought in the beginning I knew everything about entrepreneurship. The more I get into entrepreneurship, I realize the less I know. And really hit home was this was back in 2008. I decided to become an angel investor. I had a couple successful exits, meaning I sold my companies and I was all like, proud and full of myself, lots of ego, lots of ignorance. And I started to become an angel investor, started all these businesses, and they all collapsed. I had no right to be in that space. I had no idea what I was doing. And I evaporated all of my own personal wealth that I had made selling my businesses. I was on the verge of bankruptcy. I lost all my money. And I had to go home to my young family. I have 3 children and my wife and tell them it's all gone. And we lost our house over this. We lost our cars. We lost everything. And it was devastating. But, and I don't wish that moment or any dark moments upon anyone, but it became the greatest blessing, because then I started to challenge my standard thinking about how money works. I created the Profit First system, a book I wrote specifically to fix my own problems with not being able to achieve profitability. And once I found that solution, it became a solution now for, I'm so blessed, hundreds of thousands of readers. And same with Clockwork. I thought workaholism was something to be proud of. And now I'm like, oh, maybe not so much. So I wrote a book about bringing balance, having the business run on automatic. Every solution I'm finding for myself, or most of the solutions I find for myself, apply to a large base of customers. And I think that's true for any business watching right now.
Yeah, and one great part about this podcast is, Nick or I can read a book and learn something and immediately record a podcast about it, sort of regurgitating what we just learned, because it's helping us make it, deep within our bones, but it's also helping the person who may not have read that book or been exposed to that framework. Because, again, for the Clockwork book, it set up a framework in my mind that it made me ask the question, every time I'm getting a text about something missing or unsure, it's like, instead of just answering it, now I get like annoyed with myself that the system isn't working.
You know what us entrepreneurs struggle with? It's called the superhero syndrome, where we think we're Superman or Wonder Woman or whatever, and we swoop in to fix yet another problem. And it really satisfies our egos. Like, oh, that machine broke, whatever. I know how to fix it. And we come swooping in, we fix it. Oh, that client is bitching and moaning about our delivery. I'll swoop in and fix it. And it gives us a sensation of being a hero for our business. There's a big problem. First of all, we are disabling our team, our employees, our colleagues from handling the issue themselves. We actually push them out of the way to do this. Kind of like Superman fights Lex Luthor, but quite frankly, the police department's not learning how to fight Lex Luthor. He's making the police department weaker. When Superman flies in, by the way, to fight with Lex Luthor, he also destroys a city in the process, knocking down buildings and stuff. Who has to clean that up? all the schmucks behind the scene. And that's what happens for us too. We swoop in, we fix the problem, we leave this wake of damage behind us, and we never think about it. I now believe, and this is outrageous, but I believe the world would be better off if Superman just stayed on Kryptonite and never visited us. We would have to then figure it out on our own.
Right.
And I think, and I'm saying that partly in jest, but as entrepreneurs, if we allow our colleagues, if we focus on the higher level stuff, empowering our team, making systems, figuring out how the company can address it itself, we will elevate our business. Don't be a superhero, be a super visionary.
Yep.
Be the visionary for the business.
Yeah, and you just used the word I was thinking about, that vision word. I was actually talking about this morning. I'm training someone to be the GM for this place to handle all the day-to-day things that I'm actually doing right now. And she said, well, what if I have a lot of questions? And I said, questions are okay. And you ask me the questions you need, but it's my job to impart to you the shared vision that this company has and where we're headed. Because if I can do that correctly, a lot of those questions will answer themselves. And so let's start there and worry about what questions come up later.
That's awesome. And so in Clockwork, I was studying this as I was writing the book. And what I found is this: the most successful entrepreneurs will do that exact strategy, plus a couple things. First is when you hire someone, you tell them, listen, you're hired for what's on your shoulders there, that brain of yours. I need you to make decisions. We have to be clear in the vision. Like, here's the outcome we want for the business. Is that clear to you? And do we agree to this? Once they're clear on it, say, navigate us toward that. And if you face a question or a challenge, that's why I hired you. Find the answer. Do what you feel is right and best in the best interest of our organization to achieve that. But there's one more part that only the most elite entrepreneurs do. And this is something we all need to do, is when that employee, that GM makes a decision, we need to support it. We need to support the decision regardless if it's a good decision. Sometimes they're going to F things up. They're going to make a bad decision. And it's typical of the superhero entrepreneur to say, oh my God, you're an idiot. I will fix this. We swoop in. I'll take care of this. You're not doing that again. Mm-hmm. But that's the mistake. We disempower them. The hero, the true super visionaries go to their GM and say, hey, that outcome we got from that decision you made, it's not what either of us wanted. I get it. But I'm so proud of you. The fact you made a decision to move us forward that you felt was in the best interest of the business, that's awesome. I'm proud of you. Keep making decisions. Let's go back there and improve this, but keep doing what you're doing. Actually cheering on bad decisions is what empowers your team to make the best decisions for your company.
Yeah, I love that. And it starts with knowing that you take ownership for everything that happens. If they make a bad decision, you didn't educate them or set up the system. Instead of signing blame or worrying about blame. Now, if they're being inconsistent and not following direction, that's different. But yeah, in cases like that, you don't want to take away their power or their confidence. And so, especially dealing with people that haven't done this before, like none of us, you probably won't like this, but everyone working at the cafe's never worked in a cafe before.
No, actually, I do like that. Because they don't know the rules, right? So I actually really like that, because now you can teach them the rules. You can have best practice and say, hey, here's the way we do things. Now, when it comes to empowering decisions, we tell people, this is what we've always done. If you see an opportunity to improve on it, do it and track it. Right. There's a saying, and we do this here at our office, there's a saying that the best student is always the teacher. And to your point, like once you do things, you start becoming masterful at it. Well, at our own office, we do a lot of shipping of books, no surprise. And so we have a little shipping department here. There's 2 people that work it. And one of them is Amy. I told Amy the process, because when we started up, it was just me. I was the guy doing that work. Told her, here's the best practice. But I said, Amy, we hired you for it's on your shoulders. If you see better ways of doing things, do it. Well, she subsequently improved the shipping process. The one additional component now is she records a video, and we do this for all the process we do here, explaining the new standard. Like, this is how we're shipping books now. She records a video explaining it. When she records that video, I know now that she's teaching it to the next person that's going to watch the video and replicate it, she's actually reiterating the process and mastering it in her own mind. So we actually have the best people doing things, improving on it, and then capturing it. So if Amy ever moves on to another role here, or if she decides to leave the organization, we've not lost that knowledge. I'd encourage you, with those wonderful people working at your cafe, to start actually recording processes or creating checklists to become the teachers of the process, so you don't lose the knowledge, and they effectively become even better at it because they are the student, the best student, or the teacher.
Yeah. Well, right now we've been pivoting so much where
maybe premature.
Right, exactly. Like the menu items change, and just so. And this is what I wanted to get into next is the QBR, the queen bee role of your business, and for us setting up this business, having sort of a good idea of what we wanted it to be, but we opened up the day after Labor Day,
Mm.
and we were open for a week, and then Hurricane Florence came. We were basically in
Oh,
the eye of the storm for Hurricane Florence, so we were basically closed for the next 2 weeks. But being open that 1 week and having 2 weeks to kind of sit and think about what I liked and didn't like about that first week gave me a real good opportunity to just reevaluate everything from scratch. And it seems like a week's not a long time to wait, but I had this, I didn't know what I was doing again. And the place before was open for breakfast all the time. So I just opened for breakfast. And as I saw people come in, and it's like, how many $2.50 biscuit sandwiches do I need to serve to make money? And then how much
right.
extra labor is that going to require? It's like for every extra 10 biscuits, I need a second person in the kitchen. And so I still make no money. And so,
That reflection is key. That's so one of the components of clockwork. We will talk about the QBR, but one of the components is removing yourself from the business. There's a statue dedicated to the most important function that an entrepreneur can serve. It's a world famous statue called the thinker. Here's some naked guy, resting with his chin on his fist, just thinking. And most entrepreneurs don't give themselves times to think. They're constantly doing, they're constantly putting out fires. There's always more work to do, and therefore they can't reflect. And they stay stuck selling $2.50 biscuits. It's actually, for many entrepreneurs, that would, and maybe it was in your case too, it costs you money to stay in business during those hours.
yep.
Close the freaking doors. We'll make more money, but you'll never realize that unless you're given a break. That hurricane is definitely not a blessing for anyone, but the fact that you had the time of reflection, that component is a blessing. And I encourage entrepreneurs to dedicate a few hours a day or a half a day a week to get out of the business. Just think about the business. The impact it will have will be extraordinary.
There's another book that I really liked by Keith Cunningham called The Road Less Stupid. And it was,
I haven't read that book.
yeah, it was a cool book.
Yeah.
It's called Advice from the Chairman of the Board, it's because he knows he's been around the block. And he has this concept called thinking time, where
Yeah.
you just sit and think. And, Nick and I's working relationship is a bit different. He can be interrupted more throughout the day and it doesn't bother him as much. But,
Right.
I like to think deeply about things and for multiple hours in a day. And my mornings, I think about stuff and I can't be pulled over here, over there. And so, yeah, I don't know what the ideal mix is, but I feel like, owning multiple businesses now and being that owner role in Bootstrap and moving towards the owner role with the rest of it, that thinking time, I think, serves me best. And so it might not be actionable production you see on a day-to-day basis, but like I'm in my head, I'm writing notes. And that's why my workouts end up being 3 hours long, but I only worked out for 15 minutes because I'm just kind of
Right.
going
That's great.
my stuff out.
I'll tell you, as the owner of the business, you as the entrepreneur, if you ain't thinking, ain't nobody thinking.
Yeah.
And that's a problem for a business. We as entrepreneurs are the leader of the business. We need to put that thought time in. There's no question.
Yeah. And so, yeah, let's go back to that queen bee role a little bit, because I found this extreme, just the way you defined it, it made it so clear that, if we serve healthy, delicious takeout boxes,
right,
we're going to be okay. So let's
right.
protect that. And so before I could actually build the systems to make that happen, because again, we're still pivoting in so many ways as far as what do we want on the menu and all that good stuff. I knew that the right people weren't in the right place.
Yeah.
Like the people who were in the position to cook the food weren't working at those hours.
Yeah.
And so, one thing that in order to get that cafe in my hands, like I kept the owner on as staff to help out. But, cooking isn't her specialty. Meeting with people, talking to people is her specialty.
Yeah.
So moving her in a position where she's more customer facing and putting my best, my chef is also a farmer. It's kind of a requirement for working in this cafe. You have to know how to grow your own stuff and be able to cook. And
Yeah.
We're not in San Francisco, so we're not like Michelin chefs, but we do know what we're doing. We do put out good stuff. So putting him in the position to cook the food, that was, again, I'll thank you for that, because if you hadn't framed it like that and made me really understand what do we need to protect more than anything else, and it just made it so obvious that I needed to make that change.
I love it.
That
So
week of reflection was huge for me.
I love that. So the concept of the QBR stands for Queen Bee Role. I derived it from beehives. And as I was doing research, I found that arguably the most efficient organizations in the world are not human-based, it's insect-based beehives. They can scale very quickly, very efficient in achieving their goal. And their goal is survivability. And what we have to look at is what's the primary goal or promise of our business? What's the primary objective of our business? And then peel back the onion just one layer and say, what's the one primary activity, the most important activity supporting it? So beehives, their simple goal is to survive. What determines their survivability, the most important activity is actually the production of eggs, because bees don't live very long. Some species can live 4 or 5 weeks, other ones maybe 6 months, but there's a lot of turnover, if you will, in bees. Therefore, every bee knows we need to produce eggs. Happens that in a beehive, there's a single bee responsible for this called the queen bee. And the point of confusion here is many business owners say, oh, that means there's a single most important person in my business. That's not true. The queen bee serves the most important role, which is the production of eggs. But she is expendable. If she's not producing eggs, they spawn another queen bee. It's all about egg production. So in our business, what is the most critical role that supports our objective? I'll give an analogy because this can kind of help. If we look at FedEx, everyone recognizes that brand. FedEx's big promise, what they're hinging their success on, is the timely delivery of packages. That's the promise. So I ask everyone watching right now, like, what's the big promise you make? The most convenient access to food? Is it the highest quality food? Is it the most flavorful, which may be different than quality? How do you define that promise to your customers? What's the one most important promise you're delivering? Then we peel back the onion just one layer and say, what's the one activity that's most making that promise a reality? For FedEx, they promise to deliver packages on time. What's the activity? Well, it's logistics. It's the movement of packages. Yeah, customer service matters. Yeah, a nice website matters. Yeah, you have the shiny envelopes to put stuff in. But what really matters the most, and only one thing can be the most, is logistics. And anytime it's threatened, they take immediate evasive action to salvage it. So one example is, right around now, we're recording this during the holiday season. FedEx will be, every year, so will UPS, be overwhelmed with package demand as everyone's shipping stuff for Christmas and all the other holidays going on this time of year. What do? Do they yell at their employees and say, work harder, drive your trucks faster, drivers? No. The managers get their butts from out behind the desk and they hop in trucks. They hire on additional staff to move stuff around the warehouse and the distribution points. They protect that role of moving packages because that delivers their promise. We need to also determine what our QBR is by knowing what that one big promise we make to our customer base, and then determining the one most crucial activity that makes that a reality. Protect it for all it's worth. Make sure it's always humming. And if you take care of that one thing, the entire business will be elevated every time.
Yep. Yeah, totally on point with that. I love that. And, it's given us a clear vision as to also being consistent with all these pivots. You have to become known for something eventually. And so just defining what people are actually liking and building additional business around that, I think, has been helpful. And, that kind of leads into another, I really wanted to separate this podcast into books, but, they overlap so much where you kind of just keep running into each other. And so I didn't really feel like that would work. But one key point in, the pumpkin plan is, you have a pumpkin growing and the vine's growing and you start cutting off the things that aren't necessarily working out, and you're protecting the thing that has the most potential. And so, how can you, trying to relate this to farmers, in a way, like a lot of them struggle where they're trying to grow 30 different things and they get burned out. Some things work, and there's a learning process there where you are learning what your local market demands, but at the same time, you're diverting attention from the things that have, the highest upside.
Yeah. So, I studied colossal pumpkin farmers and studied traditional farming for just a very short period. Interestingly, I'm going to be next year taking a tour through Canada, speaking with farming communities specifically about growing their farms. And so I know enough to be dangerous, which is really scary. And what I found with colossal pumpkin farmers is if you want to grow something to colossal size in nature, you have to remove all of the other pumpkins because it's taking away nutrients and water and energy and your focus. So they habitually and quickly remove anything else growing on the vine because it takes away from the colossal pumpkin. Well, the analogy in our business is if you want to experience colossal growth, it is about focus. It requires this discipline of turning away all these little other opportunities. We don't call them distractions. We like to call them opportunities. Oh, I could also be doing this. I could also be doing that. But the more we diversify, the larger our product base, the more businesses we go into, the risk we run is it's diluting our ability to focus on any one thing. And if you're not putting 100% into one thing, that means it doesn't get 100% retention. It doesn't have the potential for the most growth. Now, a competitor down the street may be putting 100% into your, the competing thing, and that gives them a leg up. So my study, my research, and now what I experience in my own business is once you pick that one thing, become the dominant force about it. Now, here's the one thing about entrepreneurs, because some entrepreneurs say, but look at what's his name, Richard Branson. He's got like 100 businesses. He does millions of things. How can he be so successful? Well, the answer is actually he does one thing. He knows how to find people to run those businesses. He has an idea, finds a great president, plugs them in, and it's their responsibility. He finds how to make them complementary. He's a great marketer in recruiting great talent. That's his one thing. So I'd argue we all have the one thing. We've got to figure it out what it is. We've got to protect ourselves from all those shiny objects that will distract us.
Right. And find the people that, that's why Nick was so crucial to Bootstrap. I mean, he does all the things on the media side that I could just never dream of doing. Yeah. And you have to be found. You have to be, present yourself professionally. And Nick's able to do that for us. And allows me to, spend more time focusing on that strategic vision that is going to carry us forward. So yeah, definitely like that. One other thing that we were kind of talking about on the last podcast, or actually we attempted to record a podcast around goal setting. And, with the 3 businesses that I have, the end of the year's coming up. There's a lot of projects going on in each of the businesses, and there's a lot of loose ends that, I want to wrap up before the year ends. And I was just feeling maybe a little overwhelmed, and I decided, every single week in the month of December, I'm going to tackle one project for each of the businesses, something that I feel like is most important. So it forced me to prioritize. What did I actually care about tying up at, to end the year? Yeah. So do you have any tips? And I know you didn't write a book on goal setting, but you clearly have a complete 360, view of the things that someone can do to get themselves organized to build a stronger business. So, we're going to be releasing this probably tomorrow. And so it's going to give people a month to end the year. And so what would you recommend people do to get clarity on, the shiny object syndrome, or focusing on what's, I'm just going to let you take it from there. What would you?
Yeah. So I'll give you the simplest way to achieve and get more results from your business than ever before. And I'll tell you, this is the simplest way. It's a way of bifurcating, meaning separating what you're doing. And it's real simple. Look at everything you do in your business as it approaches you, as you look at it, and evaluate it based upon 2 things. Is it working? Meaning, is it bringing the results you want? Or is it not working? Is it detracting? And just have a candid look at it. And then you take a simple action. If something's working, amplify it. Do more of what's working and do less of what's not. And that's it. And I know that sounds like so oversimplified, but sadly, most entrepreneurs, myself for decades, miss that simple concept. I look at my business, my sales, and I say, listen, I got to do some more sales. We need to ramp more sales. I used to just try something aimlessly. Hey, a lot of people do Facebook ads. That probably brings in more leads. We can sell more. No, I simply look at my business and say, out of the 10 things we have been doing, what's working? Well, one thing presented itself to be working the most. All right, we'll do a lot more of that. Those other 9 things, let's cut those off or reduce them and then put more into what's working. And sure enough, sales exploded. Mm-hmm. So it is really that simple. What's working, do more of it. What's not, have the discipline of ditching it or redirecting that, and I should say, redirecting that energy to what's working, and that'll give your business a massive jumpstart.
Yeah. And we find ourselves getting involved in too many things, and sometimes we don't see things through the way that they should be seen through, like almost just kind of half-assing too many things to get them done and say that you did it. And that's not really helpful.
No, it can be hurtful, right? So there's a term for that. It's called being a human being, by the way. It's very normal, right? We start something and then we stop doing it. There's a fabulous book, in my opinion, about this. It's called The Dip. It's written by Seth Godin. And
we've been ranting about Seth Godin for last week. We're both reading his new book right now.
Oh, I have it too, right here.
Oh, nice.
I just started digging into This Is Marketing.
Yep.
But what Seth Godin wrote about in the dip is just an interesting phenomena. The excitement and energy when we have a new concept is heightened. So we're at this heightened stage. Then very quickly, when we start applying effort, like, oh my gosh, this isn't working. This is a pain in the ass. I didn't realize it required that much work. We go into this dip. What I interpreted from what he read is that at that point, most people give up and say, this isn't working. And we get into the next high. We constantly pursue that initial high. If we have the willingness and courageousness to stick through that dip, the climb on the other side is so much higher. Starting new things is like a little bit like crack cocaine. There's that excitement in the beginning. Sticking with something really brings you to the zenith. But I think you need to use that discipline of amplifying what's working, stop doing what's not working, and also whatever vocation you're in, it has to bring inner joy. It has to serve, I feel, a greater purpose, impacting others. That feeling is, to me, the ultimate energy to move your business to the highest levels of success as you define it.
Yeah. And I've even noticed as the market goes from week to week, the more I've leaned into the things that just feel right, the better success that we've seen. So, I think there's something to be said for, you put out better work when it's something you really care about and something you think is really unique to you.
Yeah.
And so we also, what does Seth say about finding the smallest viable audience? And, it gets pretty small around these parts. And I still feel like we're finding our tribe. So, it's just a good example where if we could pull it off here, it can be pulled off anywhere. And so hopefully that alleviates some people's fears.
Yeah.
Well, we're close on time. Mike very graciously allowed for us to have. So thank you very much, Mike, for taking the time out and sharing with our audience. Please check out MikeMichalowicz.com. One other thing I didn't mention in the beginning was you have a summary program called the 4 T's, the top tier techniques, which you described as a summary of the books that you wrote. I went through it. I loved it. There's plenty of videos in there. Your resource page on MikeMichalowicz.com, which we'll have a link to, is fantastic. And just
thanks, brother.
So
if I may, there's a shortcut because I talk about weaknesses. If we're in a rural area, there's a less customer base. If you have a last name that's Michalowicz, long, Polish, and ugly, you really struggle. So there's a shortcut. It's Mike Motorbike. So your listeners can go to MikeMotorbike.com. That's easy to spell. And sure enough, if you I have my book available for free. One of my books called Surge, you can get for free. And also that T4 program is available once you get Surge for free if you want to explore that. I'd be honored. I think people will love it. But, define for yourself. Maybe it's not fit for everybody.
Well, Brandon and I only read the best books. So we highly encourage everybody to check out all of the books we mentioned, especially The Pumpkin Plan and Profit First, Clockwork. It's been a great honor having you on. Thanks,
brother.
Yeah, thank you.
Nick, Brandon, thank you both.